Uh, welcome, welcome, welcome. Just in case you notice, I'm not sitting quite as low as I've been previously in other videos. It was because I had a stupid chair that was comfortable but was sitting way too low, and and with the height of this table and the lowness of the chair, just didn't quite didn't quite my you know as far as my presentation it was seriously lacking. And so anyway, I improved that part. Should I even be saying this and let you come to that own conclusions yourself? I don't know. I'm just I'm just decided that I'm going to share that with you right now. It just just one of these things that I do. But anyway, last night I talked about the movement for a People's Party. Something that I think we genuinely need. We need something that's an alternative to both parties. It's cliche to say that, but here's the thing. Many Americans complain about the two party system. Democrats complain about it. Republicans complain about it. And there are Democrats that says we need a progressive third party. And I am very sympathetic to that point of view. I hear Republicans will say occasionally, they're like, well, I like to have a conservative party. And while I don't want their conservative party to do well electorally per se, I do believe in principle that that even conservatives who are not satisfied with the way things are in the Republican Party, I wish them well in their efforts to have their own third party. Because I believe in third parties. Period. Now I vote within the two party system occasionally, and you probably know which side or which political party of the two major parties that I'm more inclined to vote for if I do vote for such parties. And it's basically on an individual basis or is a tactical move to what they call harm reduction to prevent the worst of the opposing party from advancing their agenda. I will explain. I have a tendency to vote as far left as I can in the primaries of the Democratic Party, and I tend to vote as far left with even outside the two party system, usually if there's options available. Like, for example, I have voted for the Socialist Party USA and I have voted for the Green Party multiple times. Once I made a left wing argument for voting for a libertarian for president and made a left wing case for it. I have never, ever, ever, and will never vote Republican under any circumstances for president. I voted for one Republican once for a local office, and this person was a friend of the family, and the office he was seeking could not, from my judgment, do any real harm. So, and if I find myself voting for a generic Democrat, then, well, there's no choice to the left of that Democrat, and I'm doing it in the name of harms reduction. But I am getting way off track, and I want to talk about electoral politics from an independent perspective. And that brings me to talking about the most important political party of the 20th century, which was the Socialist Party of America, which existed from 1901 to 1972. Now, the quick history is that in the 1890s, a labor activist by the name of Eugene Victor Debs was engaged in a series of strikes around the country, and he served jail time. Um, he served jail time for the Pullman strike, which resulted in the deaths of people who were striking and the state militia. And he was not really a socialist per se, but just a generic trade union organizer with a radical streak. And while he was in prison, um, members of the old Socialist Labor Party and other orthodox Marxists wanted to talk to Eugene Debs, and they talked to him in prison. He served 3 months, by the way. And when he when he left prison, he was radicalized, and in 1897, the Social Democratic Party of America was founded. In 1900, the Social Democratic Party nominated Eugene Debs for president. Of course, he didn't win, but it was obviously something that was new coming along. And in 1901, the Socialist Party of the Socialist Labor Party had some internal doctrinaire faction fights going on, and a moderate wing, referred to as the kangaroo wing of the Socialist Labor Party, split away from the Socialist Labor Party of Daniel De Leon, and these people met with the people from the Social Democratic Party of America, merged to become what is now what became known as the Socialist Party of America in 1901. Eugene Debs as a member of the Social Democratic Party from 1900, and in 1904, 1908, 1912, and in 1920 was the presidential candidate for the Socialist Party of America, with the exception of A.L. Benson in the year 1916. And so, to make a long story short in its history, the Socialist Party of America enjoyed success by electing two members of Congress. That was Victor Berger of Wisconsin and Meyer London of New York City. Multiple city councils, mayors, state representatives across the United States. And it was arguably the third largest party in the country, behind the Democrats and the Republicans. In 1924, the Socialist Party of America teamed up with a Republican U.S. Senator by the name of Robert La Follette and formed the shortly lived Progressive Party. And basically, the Socialist Party of America was the infrastructure that the umbrella group, the Progressive Party, were using. And I believe in some states you can vote for either progressive all the way down or socialist all the way down in some other states, with Robert La Follette being on top of the ballot. This attempt to create such a party kind of fractured apart after the 1924 election. And in 1928, Norman Thomas, who was a Presbyterian minister after the death of Eugene Debs in 1926, he ended up taking over the leadership of the Socialist Party of America. Radical pacifist, leadership of the American Civil Liberties Union for decades, and all around neat guy. Norman Thomas was influential enough that by the time the Great Depression came along, some of the ideas started gaining traction, and FDR and the Democrats were scared that the Socialist Party of America could supplant the Democratic Party. So they did. So a lot of state legislatures did where they could to stop third parties from getting on the ballot, and basically it forced the Socialist Party of America little by little out of electoral politics. But many former Socialist Party members ended up becoming New Deal liberals over the years. A faction split away in 1936 to overtly support FDR, called the Social Democratic Federation. Norman Thomas ran from 1932 to 1948 for president, and a lot of people refer to Norman Thomas as the conscience of America. In 1956, or 57, I guess it was, the Socialist Party of America and the old Social Democratic Federation remerged and became the Socialist Party Social Democratic Federation, with a splinter group called the Democratic Socialist Federation splitting apart. And I know I'm going really fast, but I'm saying this really fast to kind of piece everything together. Well, all the way prior to 1972, for people who were objective, whether you were a liberal, whether you were even a conservative, if you were objective and you knew about the Socialist Party of America, you were not particularly supportive of them, but you were a fair-minded person, you knew that the Socialist Party of America was, anti-communist and did not support communism, and actually supported, has been very, very good on questions like racial equality, serving fully on board with the civil rights movement, was one of the major organizations that protested the American policy against Japanese Americans during World War II, were successful in creating a multiracial trade union down in the South, referred to the Southern Farmers Tenant Union, where black and white farmers got together. I mean, workers got together to unionize and were able to gauge one of the few places in the South where collective bargaining was actually tolerated. So there's been a very good history to the Socialist Party of America when it comes to human rights. We founded the NAACP. We founded the War Resisters League, Congress of Racial Equality, Industrial Workers of the World. We founded the American Civil Liberties Union. We founded Planned Parenthood. We founded many organizations that are considered respected liberal institutions today. Played a role in the CIO, Congress of Industrial Organization, and the American Federation of Labor merging to become the AFL-CIO. And the list goes on and on and on. Anyway, Socialist Party of America, that's where it was at. And as I said, it remained pretty much a political voice on the left, which offered an American way of doing socialism, an American way which was radically democratic, very anti-communist, very pro-civil liberties, pro-free speech, pro-racial equality, pro-union, and pro-American dream. I can't think of an organization that's done better in terms of accomplishing a lot, in spite of having the system rigged against them, just as the system rigged against Bernie Sanders within the Democratic Party in 2016 and 2020. We've had many famous people in the Socialist Party of America, among them Eugene Victor Debs, Norman Thomas, Clarence Darrow, Upton Sinclair, Emma Goldman, Helen Keller, Martin Luther King, A. Philip Randolph, William Kunstler, David McReynolds, Walter Reuther. The names go on and on. Frank Zeidler, and onward and onward and onward. So we have many famous people that we're proud of in our tradition. And so, what problem was for the Socialist Party of America was there was division in the Socialist Party over the Vietnam War in the 1960s. The party was unifiedly anti-communist, but you had the left wing who were radical pacifists, and you had the more moderate right wing of the party that was trying to succumb and be part of the institution of the AFL-CIO and wanted to be and work itself hard to get a place on the table with American liberalism. And so that those 2 point of views were at odds with each other in the party. You had the radical pacifists that wanted to go back to the days of Eugene Debs and Norman Thomas in the 1930s, and you had a realignment caucus that wanted to work within the broader liberal community and become respected members of the liberal community, hopefully to influence liberalism to succumb to the demands of socialism, such as national health insurance and greater union influence in the economy, and even in some cases, some forms of nationalizations of certain basic industries. Well, the war issue was the main issue. Also, electoral politics was also a main issue, and the Socialist Party of America split in 1972 and fractured into 3 organizations which exist today: the Social Democrats USA, by simple name change in late 72. The Democratic Socialist Organizing Committee, which split away from Social Democrats USA, it became known eventually as DSA with a merger of a new left organization called the New American Movement. And the old Socialist Party USA has reconstituted, wanting to, as I said, bring the party back to the glory days of Debs and the early Norman Thomas years. Each faction of the 3-way split still represent a vital part of the old Socialist Party of America. And so when each of these groups say, we are the Socialist Party of Eugene Debs and Norman Thomas, they're not fully telling you the truth, but they're not fully lying either. They represent a faction of the party. There was always a faction of the party that always leans away what would become the Social Democrats USA. There's always been a faction of the party that leaned to what became DSA. And there has always been a faction that kind of leans to what became known as the SPUSA. So I'm going to make an argument the Socialist Party of America never really went away. It just fractured into three movements. And I think that it would like be nice to see the three movements come back together. Currently, the United States of America does not have an SI affiliate. The SI is the Socialist International, and the Socialist International is the worldwide federation of democratic socialists, social democratic, and labor parties, for which the old Socialist Party of America was almost always perpetually a member of such an institution. When the Socialist Party of America split in 72, Social Democrats USA and what would become DSA were members of the SI. The Socialist Party USA, you had people who were in favor of affiliation, and I was among them when I was a member, a very strong proponent of it. Um, and then you had probably a majority that were opposed to it, but divided between those who were overtly hostile and look at the SI as a sellout organization, and then there are those, and the middle position is the one I respect. Is there's nothing wrong with being friendly with social democratic parties abroad, but can we really afford it when we should be investing our money to grow the party within and to make it, make it more viable in the United States? And that is a position I can respect. If I was to go back in time in the Socialist Party USA when I was a member, I would argue for that middle position, with of course, the intention of being committed to the Socialist Party USA, rejoining the SI, at the very least as an observer member. But anyway, and there's a book by Jack Ross called "The History of the Socialist Party of America," um, and I highly recommend it. And it's a very detailed history of the party and everything that happened during the 20th century within the party, and the faction fights, and the split between the Socialist Party and what became the Communist Party after the Bolshevik Revolution. As I said, it's a fascinating piece of history, and it's a movement that contributed so much that I would hate to see it disappear myself. Now, one can argue that Bernie Sanders plays an important part in this because Bernie Sanders was a member of the Young People's Socialist League in the 1960s. So Bernie Sanders and his basic politics is the politics of the old Socialist Party of America. Um, Bernie Sanders, when I was in the SPSA, Bernie Sanders was kind of a divided topic. Unfortunately, and he was divided. It was divided among some of the more sectarian members of the party, and I thought that was a big mistake to distance ourselves from Bernie Sanders. We needed Bernie Sanders. He didn't necessarily need us, and I just thought it was irresponsible for the SPUSA to take a position of antagonism toward Bernie Sanders. Not every SPUSA member. There was a lot of SPUSA members who were, in fact, very pro Bernie Sanders, and just it was one of the reasons, one of a few other reasons why I ended up having to part away from it. But the thing about it is that the Socialist Party of America, we need to come back, and there are efforts to bring the old Socialist Party of America back. And such an active local exists in Pennsylvania right now with Catherine Ann McCloskey, an activist in the Johnstown area. She's doing what she can to put a presence for the Socialist Party of Pennsylvania back on the political map in that state, and there are other activist people across the country doing the same thing. And as a North Carolinian, if there's anybody who's familiar with the party and the history and the ideology, and you're in full agreement, I would be glad. I would be glad to talk to you about forming an American Labor Party of North Carolina, or a Social Democratic Party of North Carolina, or the Socialist Party of North Carolina, or the Independent Labor Party of North Carolina. I mean, I just like the combinations of this name for my own reasons. But anyway, that's what I want to talk about, and I think it's kind of important in relations to the People's Party, and we need to do what we can to create an alternative to the Democratic Party, which is insufficiently leftist at this day and point, considering what how they screwed over Bernie Sanders. Now, I am not preaching to those who insist, especially in this election cycle, to settling for the lesser evil. I'm not going to sit there and condemn you, and I'm not going to condemn you if you're on the side of independent political action in an absolutist sort of way. In this election cycle, I'm going to say it's between you and your conscience. But suffice to say that we need to be committed to building something that other countries are fortunate to have. I mean, in Canada, they have the new Democratic Party. In Great Britain, they have the Labour Party. In Sweden, they have the Social Democrats. In France, they have the Socialists. And it's time that we have something like that here in the United States. So anyway, if you like what you heard, press like. If you dislike it, you can press dislike. Either way, feel free to comment, and feel free to give your insights. And as a free speech absolutist, let me just say that if you have a platform and you're very passionate about a subject, utilize it, because we are all the muckrakers of our time. And okay, and as I said, share, like, dislike, comment, subscribe. Do your own platform. And until next time, peace. Bernie Sanders for president in the year 2024. And no, I wasn't kidding when I said that.